Welcome back to Just 15 Minutes. My name is Eric Bomyea, and today I'm joined by Matt Nazario-Miller, Talent Development at LinkedIn. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat.
Good. Before we get into the conversation, I'm wondering if you'll join me for a brief drop-in practice.
Would love to.
Okay. Today I thought we could do 3 breaths together, where we'll just do a slight hold at the top. So we'll inhale together, we'll hold for a brief pause, and then we'll let it out slow and steady. And today we'll do a little emphasis on the exhale. So I won't count this out too much. We'll just kind of find a rhythm that works for both of us. We'll breathe in together, hold, and then long, slow, steady exhale. So If you're ready, we'll begin. We'll inhale together, hold, and slow, steady exhale. 2 more like that. Inhaling, holding, and slow, steady exhale. Last one, inhaling, holding at the top, and exhaling.
Nice.
Thank you for joining me with that. All right, well, let's dive on in. Matt, you're currently in a season with a couple moving pieces. You're leading learning at LinkedIn, and you're openly navigating a job search, something very few people are open about. And so I'm curious, during this time, what helps you to stay steady without pretending everything is fine?
My first thought is people. The connections that I've made since the layoff at Stanford over the last summer are people that I wouldn't have come into contact with had I not been laid off. So building this network across the country at this point of people who find themselves in the same boat, these are the people who I'm reaching out to and texting or messaging when I'm in a tough spot or when I'm really down in this job search process, in this really awful job market. Just hearing from other people, even if it's just I'm in it with you and I'm feeling this too, that brings me a sense of grounding and also helps me to get out of my own head, because when I get trapped in my thoughts and I'm thinking and ruminating about, oh, am I going to find that next thing? Oh, am I going to get that interview? It's so much easier to tackle that feeling when it's shared with somebody else.
Yeah, it's really easy for the mind to want to go to the future, the what ifs, and also to the past, the what happens, the what wers. And what I'm hearing is a steadiness found in the present moment with connection with people, and especially people who are navigating something similar, who can relate and empathize without too much effort because they're in it with you too.
Right, exactly. It's been nice to just set up calls with people to be open about it over Zoom and connect us across geography and just be real. The realness of that connection time has been really meaningful for me in a place where so much feels fake online, so much is AI generated. In a world of fakeness, it's nice to talk to people who are real about it all.
Absolutely. And real about something that is very alive for them. It's not masking that everything is okay. It's actually revealing this is what's going on for me, and this is the reality of my situation, and how you are leading by example through that, by openly talking about what happened and openly sharing that you're on a job search, I think is really admirable, because if I'm understanding correctly, you have a current position and you're still talking about opening or being open to work.
That's right. My current role is a contracted position. So I'm a contingent worker at LinkedIn. And that is a whole new world for me in a career sense, because prior to this role, I've never done any sort of contract work. I've always been a salaried employee in my career. So it's been a lot of new, a lot of figuring out what the difference is between being salaried versus being a contingent worker. And because of the finite nature of this contract, I have felt like I am able to be more open and honest with the fact that I am looking still for a permanent position. There is no shame in my game when it comes to putting myself out there. And folks who have experience with different types of work arrangements totally understand and get that. I have had a lot of positive reception from being so open with where I'm at in this transitional phase of my career.
Yeah. And in that distinct moment of this is new, learning a lot of new things, and also being radically transparent of like, this is also where I'm at. And I think what's really heartwarming or enlightening for me is the navigating of that almost in real time and the vulnerability of letting people in on what's happening. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that. Has that been something that you've experienced in the past? Is that a new thing? Like, what has helped you get to that point of vulnerability?
I used to be your classic case of a job searcher who keeps their cards super close to the chest. And when I came through grad school, that was something that they taught us to do, was to be careful about how you position yourself as a candidate, be mindful of what details you might share and with whom, with where you are in your job search process. All great advice that comes from an important and good place. And at the same time, I've also seen a through line through my career, especially as someone who works in communications, where there's a lot of value that's placed on vulnerability. Also, having been a people manager for a while, that has also shown through in when I work with folks and when I work within lead teams, they value that I am 100% real the way that I am before, during, and after their time on my team. It's not a charade. I actually have a really hard time being fake or any sort of inauthentic self with any part of
Yeah.
my career. So I think that being able to lead with what has become a strength of mine, not just in the work with communications or with people, but just generally in life, has
Mhm.
helped me a lot to understand and get real with my own self, with the interior work that comes with going into a global job search. I have to know myself and take a hard look in the mirror at what my
Yeah.
skills, strengths, and gaps are so that then I can talk about it with all kinds of folks everywhere in all kinds of different industries and areas of work. So it all
Yeah.
kind of bleeds into the rest of it when it comes down to
Yeah.
vulnerability.
In order to lead with what is, you have to know what is. You have to be aware enough of what is happening internally to be able to lead from a place like that. And so you talked a little bit about the inner work that you have done. What are some of the practices you've been a part of that have helped you to cultivate that inner knowing so that you can lead with what is?
I attribute a lot of that to my background in Jesuit Catholic education.
Mhm.
So I went to Jesuit Catholic schools for high school, undergrad, and grad school, and then even worked professionally at a Jesuit Catholic institution following all of that. So clearly Jesuit obsessed, and for good reason, because part of that ethos and approach to life, that holistic approach that Jesuits take, is about mindfulness and meditation and interiority. So I learned
Mm,
early on, even in high school, it was important to make mindful time to reflect. There was, I think, a daily reflection that we had that came over the PA speaker, and we would practice that Ignatian spirituality. So that followed me, right? Like that was a primary motivator, and that value set was important for me as I was thinking about each stage coming up in what was next in my journey, whether that was academics and then later on it became career decisions. I needed to be in places where that was encouraged, where that there was space made for that level of reflection. So the practice began early on. I will say it's a continued challenge though to weave that into daily life, especially running a national network, doing a global job search, working a full time contracted job. It takes a lot of focus and time management to build that type of practice back into my day that I was so used to in high school.
yeah. Discipline, prioritization, the courage that it takes to say, no, this is a priority. There may be other things externally that one might look at as a priority, but I know that this daily reflection time is important. And so I'm going to have the discipline to carve it out for myself and I'm going to stand up for it.
Totally. I think it could be as easy as 5 minutes. I'm trying
Mhm.
to just say, like, okay, where are the times naturally in the flow of my
Yeah.
routine where I can catch 5 minutes to sit on the couch and Also, not just practice mindfulness, but also gratitude. Space
Mm,
and time in this transition in my career, it is so easy to get dark and negative, and I do think there should be space to express that and to feel that too. I don't want to discount
absolutely.
that, but
Absolutely.
it also takes a conscious effort to focus on the good. And so in those 5 minutes, I can do that. I can say, I'm so grateful for what I have right now instead of focusing so much on the uncertainty of what's coming in the future.
Really beautifully said. There is so often that we are led to believe that we don't have enough time, and it just takes 5 minutes. I mean, that's why the podcast is named Just 15, because we
Mm-hmm.
can get a lot done in just 15 minutes.
It's true.
Yeah. So, one thing before we wrap up, there is a discernment between leading with what is and also being mindful of what can be received. So even as a people manager, right, we may be privy to information or whatever it might be, and there still is a discernment of how can I lead with what is happening, what is in the field, what is alive for me, while also being mindful of the other person and what I can and can't share. We even touched on this with, there are certain people in positions where it is like the people in your grad program who taught you like to hold the cards close to your chest. There's a reason for that, and discernment is part of that. So, what would you say to somebody who is walking that line and like how to look at something with discernment to be able to say, like, how do I still lead authentically while maybe not revealing everything that's happening right now?
I think about being open to feedback, and that feedback can be negative. I think, we like to say that's constructive feedback. It can feel negative when you receive that.
Yes.
But the best managers that I ever had and the best leaders that I've ever seen were 100% real with asking for and making space for that type of feedback. So you have to be ready to receive what you're asking for and to make the space for that to be, it may be tough, and to sit with that feedback and to see, is this feedback that I can turn into action and
Mm,
make a real difference? Because what I like to recognize in those moments where I've made that space and I do get that feedback is that it took a lot for that person to tell me that. Even if I was open and I made that space, it still takes a lot of courage for someone to share some feedback like that with you as a
yes.
leader. So I want to honor that by making real steps to address what I could do better. And so that's part of the vulnerability piece too, is you're opening yourself up to maybe tough feelings. And it's what you do with it after that matters, especially to the people who gave you that feedback.
Beautiful. Thank you. And last question. If there is somebody who is struggling with, I can't even find minutes, let alone 10 or 15, what advice would you give to them today?
My advice would be to still try, give it a shot. And there's also other ways of doing it that don't involve a significant time investment. For me lately, that's been mantras. So maybe that's writing down a few mantras on a sticky note that you keep with you throughout your day or on your phone. And you can quickly look at that in a moment where you need to find your center. It
Mm,
could take as fast as a few seconds of like, oh, I need to look back at my mantras right now. I could really use that grounding. Or even taking less than a minute to do breath work like we did at the top of this call. That can be helpful. It's better than doing nothing for yourself.
absolutely. Just try and set yourself up for as much success as you can. It's being proactive, being disciplined, and aligning with what is. I think this is a really beautiful conversation. I've appreciated our time together. If you'll join me in closing, I'm just going to bring a gesture of gratitude. You can join me if you'd like. It is with deep appreciation and gratitude I thank all of the mentors, teachers, and guides that came before us, all those that will come after us, all that will be impacted and touched by our conversation today and the conversations from here on out. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.